Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Live Free Now show, bringing you the news, views, tips, and tools you can use to live a free, prosperous, and healthy life. I am your host, John Bush. We have a wonderful program lined up for you today. We're going to be joined by Texas Slim. He's a Texas cattle rancher. He's the guy behind the Beef Initiative, which essentially is linking up local food producers with local food consumers. It's a massive effort to decentralize the food supply. Most people are wholly dependent on grocery stores, have no connection to the food that they eat. And at the end of the day, most of the food they eat is total garbage. So Slim is helping to bring awareness to the importance of regenerative agriculture, regenerative ranching, food production, meat production, and the connection that it has to our health. He's also a big proponent of Bitcoin. And not only are we decentralizing the food supply, but we're also decentralizing the way we do money. I want to invite you guys out to join us. Texas Slim will be our main presenter at the Live Free Academy Food Resiliency Town Hall. That's coming up December 3rd. You could register for free to watch online over at livefree.academy/town hall, livefree.academy/town hall. Hope you'll check it out. There's also tickets to join us in Bastrop, where you'll be able to have some food and some great stuff. It looks like we're live on Odyssey, but it's going to the wrong link, but that's all right. We're also live on YouTube. Shout out to the audience checking us out. All right, without further ado, let's bring our guest up. Texas Slim, how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing good. I'm freezing my butt off here in West Texas, but it's okay. It's winter. It gets colder up here than you guys down there. So
yeah, it's cold here. It's like 45 or so. So I imagine it's pretty nipply up there.
I think it was 10, 12 degrees. So
wow.
They blow in, they blow out. So, they come off the Rockies, and by the time they get to down central Texas, they're kind of petered out. So
good. Well, we're lucky down here. Well, cool. Yeah. So why don't you introduce yourself to our audience for those not familiar with the work that you do? And I want to spend some time getting into your background and how you came to this whole food intelligence thing. But who is Texas Slim?
Well, what I am and who I am is, we've created a kind of a movement around I Am Texas Slim and the Beef Initiative, where I grew up. I grew up in ranching and, agriculture, everything, multi-generational Texan. And, a couple of years ago, had an internal injury. And so I started looking at food again, and I wanted to get back to really the source of the seed of our nutrition. I've always, I grew up with a freezer full of beef. We always ate our food locally growing up. It was something we had a lot of good health. We, we fed the community. My grandfather was a big steward of the community. He was very decentralized in the way that he raised his cattle, his chicken, his fowl, his hogs, all that kind of stuff. So whenever I got kind of beat up, I was laid up for about 8 months. And so I come from big tech. Whenever I was 19, I moved to Austin, and I became a research analyst throughout the years. And so I've got some skill sets that I put towards food intelligence, and I created that hashtag. And I said, we're going to get back to the source of the seed of where we came from, because what we've got going on right now is we have basically a metabolic failure in the nation, and it's trickling down into our children. And I made a promise to myself and to my family, to my son, to my legacy, that I was going to create something that would allow people to basically have market access to the best nutrition in the world. Started out with Texas beef. Now it's across the nation. We got over 100 producers in the Beef Initiative platform. They all come in voluntarily. They follow a lot of regenerative practices. Each protocols are always different. The beef industry is a wide spectrum of proof of work of ranchers, and everybody gets to have a voice within the Beef Initiative. What we're doing is we're creating a new beef industry in the United States, and we're doing it with an integration that basically eliminates the multinational processing centers, distribution, the global industrial food complex, and we don't have to ask for permission. We use Bitcoin because it's a decentralized payment structure. It's a network. A lot of people don't understand Bitcoin, but it's a peer-to-peer transaction, and a lot of ranchers are really loving it because they're getting paid in Bitcoin. They don't have to pay transactional fees, 3% to the credit card companies, so they could save that money in Bitcoin if they need to transfer it over into fiat. So it's very wide. But what I'd say the Beef Initiative truly is, we're about building relationships. We're basically building out locally and we're broadcasting globally. First started in Texas. Now we're across the United States. We're getting North, South America involved. I'll be going to Australia at the beginning of the year. So that's kind of the long and the short of it. And we'll go into more detail when we continue this conversation.
Okay, right on. Yeah, it's a very noble mission and absolutely critical right now. There's a health epidemic, and it's ironic because there's a bunch of money spent on healthcare in this country, but it's more like sick care. Right. So
yeah,
you got a history as a Texan. How many generations did you share that?
Oh, we fought about 6 or 7.
All right. That's old school.
My ancestral grandfather, he was over here in before the revolution, and he was actually the first preacher in the Carolinas to establish a Wesleyan Methodist church. And so he had 9 children and 9 sons is what he had. And they went on discipleship, and one of them ended up in Galveston Bay. So it was a long time ago. So,
all right, cool. A lot of history. So tell me a little bit more about this health episode that you had. I was listening to one of your interviews with this woman recently, and you really opened up and got vulnerable about some of the details there. I know oftentimes adversity can lead to some major life changes and some big eurekas. So can you kind of walk us through what you were experiencing a few years back that led you to this eye-opening experience about health?
Well, how I grew up, the cowboy way. That's the only way I can know how to say it. That's as transparent as I can be. I don't bullshit around. I tell you like it is. And I've had over 20 broken bones. I've got 14 pieces of metal in me. I've had concussions, all that. Well, we don't complain. We deal with the pain. I had an internal injury. I didn't complain, and I dealt with the pain, but that pain kept on dealing with me. And over time, I had kind of something that basically started shutting down my kidneys, and I didn't really know what was going on. Well, I lost a lot of weight. I lost a lot of muscle mass. I was dying basically, and I didn't know it. It was over a period of time. And finally, I had to go into the medical system. And whenever I did, they drained over 28 liters of fluid out of me. I weighed about 121 pounds when they were done with that. I was nutritionally starved. My body wasn't functioning. My GI tract was gone. And, I had to be put back together in a certain way. But what I found out while I was in the medical, under the care of this reactive medical system that we do have, I've had a lot of broken bones. I got a lot of metal. They do very good at the mechanical side of health. I've had a lot of experience with the health industry in the United States. One thing that they aren't is they are not sound in what nutrition is and actually how to treat people that have metabolic issues, GI issues, things that really matter as far as what is the importance of somebody that needs to reestablish their nutritional value from the inside out. I found that out, and I was damn near dead. They gave me about 6 weeks. They couldn't figure it out at first, but throughout time, patience, and a lot of diligence on my part, I was able to get well, and I did a lot of my rehab on my own. And that's whenever I turned my skill set into really understanding where we are kind of trapped within our consumption models and our lack of market access to that food and that nutrition that I talk about so much. And so it was enough of a scare where I thought I was going to be gone. And I made a promise if I got out of this, I was going to go on a mission. And I made a sacred promise with myself, and I've kept it ever since then. It's been about 3 years. And, we're gaining a lot of traction. A lot of people are paying attention because they're starting to see, the deceptions out there. I wrote an article called The Harvest of Deception, and you can get that on my Substack. It's texasslim.substack.com is the first one I wrote. that took off, and we haven't really turned around yet. We're grassroots. We don't have a bunch of that dang, centralized controlled money. Everybody's giving their time, talent, and treasure. They see the value of this, and they want to go save children's lives. And I knew that I had to do something, because our children in this nation, they're getting robbed, and a lot of people will not acknowledge it. There's a form of denial going on in our society that is killing our children. And like I say, I know exactly what's going on in the food systems, as far as you don't have to validate that damn deception anymore. There's other options. It's a lifestyle change. And us adults, us parents, we're the ones that have to stand up and start taking charge of this, and quit acting like we have to ask permission to eat the best nutrition in the world.
Right on. Yeah, I'm always fascinated by this concept of anti-fragility. In fact, the first time I heard about it, it was in relation to Bitcoin, which I definitely want to talk more about. But it's really like a mindset, right? So adversity happens, chaos, instability, pain, struggle. And for some folks, it breaks them and they never come back. But for other folks that are empowered compared to being a victim, there's a lot of victimhood in this world, especially in this country here in the US. But for a lot of folks that are empowered, they leverage that adversity in order to learn more, in order to become more resilient. So I really appreciate that about your story. Can you share, so you were going to the doctors and the MDs and the Western medical establishment, which, as you pointed out, is very reactive. What was it that led you to this natural health path? I know that you're all into beef, right? And eating largely carnivore, which I've seen a difference in my energy and health now that I've been pounding on y'all steaks and KC cattle and stuff. Not to mention, it just tastes absolutely fabulous. But was it some research? Was it somebody that you were turned on to? Was it an article you found? What were the specifics as far as that transition from the old way of doing things is really what we're doing. The transition from this Western allopathic reactionary medicine back to this more holistic approach to health. What was that insight that you found?
Well, the one thing that I always talk about is, I don't do anything midstream. I think you can't do that anymore. You got to start from the source. You have to discover, and you have to find out what the source of the seed of the issue is. And so with my own health scare, one thing that I was able to do was I was able to reflect on a family and a heritage that in which I came from, which we were very healthy. We like I said before, we stewarded community. My grandfather did. And one thing that, I noticed, and, with my analysis that I can perform, is that a lot of things started happening within the agricultural system, as a young boy. And ever since then, you look at the charts of our metabolical health, it follows the destruction of the dollar. The debasement of our dollar and the debasement of our health are the same chart. And once I knew that, I started looking at everything that had happened in the agricultural world. And so you look at all the fake commodities that have been introduced, and let's say since 1971, you can really start tracking basically the failure of our health as a nation. And by doing that, once I, kind of had basically my compass on the right direction of where to go with this, I really started, I went out there, and from things like, I went and I interviewed healthcare clinics. I fed the homeless. I was feeding 250 homeless people a week at one time. I went out there and talked to the academic certified nutritionist that were trying to take care of me. And most everything they were telling me was based on something that is not basically healthy. As far as what you go look at how they treat diabetes, they don't bring up anything about, protein. They don't bring up anything about eliminating certain highly processed carbohydrates out of your diets. And so just going down that rabbit hole, it's not that hard. A lot of people don't understand that most of our food has basically been engineered where they've hijacked our taste buds. And so everybody's really now their desires, they don't even know why they desire the certain foods, because it's a chemically induced desire. So by doing that, you get to the source of the seed of what the hell's going on, what the hell has happened. And then by that, I embedded myself in a harvest company, and I went and kind of checked out, what we were harvesting across the United States. I went on wheat harvest, and it ended up we were basically harvesting 50% of our crop was rapeseed, which is canola oil. And they're saying that there's a wheat shortage because of droughts, but that wasn't the case. Is that they were subsidizing more canola oil into our harvest the year I went out there. And a lot of people don't even realize that rapeseed was outlawed by the FDA in 1956 by any human consumption. Well, what happened since then? Well, we went very industrial. We went monocropped, and we said we're going to go feed the world. And everybody always says that we have to feed the world, and that's bullshit. What we have to do is we have to feed our communities, because when we said we started, going to feed the world, we quit feeding our children. We quit feeding our communities. Most of our food that we consume in our communities now are multinational corporations. Some of the most strongest communities in the United States of days gone by are now the weakest. They're food deserts, and they are as close to agriculture as you can get, but they don't have market access to that beef, that fowl, that nutrition, that protein, or even the grains that they wouldn't have to go and buy through the multinationals. So a lot of people don't understand the distribution, the engineering of a global food. One World Food Group is what it is. And whenever you look at the multinational corporations, they do have an agenda. It's part of their 2030. It's all part of the Great Reset. They want to basically create a One World Food Group in which they take out most of the animal protein, and a lot of it already has been taken out, but people don't understand how to disseminate these labels that they deceive us with. They don't understand that when it says 14 grams of protein on a package of pizza pockets, that there's no protein in there that's going to benefit you whatsoever. So it's daunting to get started into the food intelligence, but once you kind of accept that there are deceptions out there, and when you accept the health of the nation has basically been destroyed the last 50 years, it's pretty easy to say, okay, I'm gonna basically change my consumption model from audio to video to my food, and I'm going to create direct market access peer-to-peer as we do in the Beef Initiative. And I'm going to be able to basically engineer, I always tell people, engineer your own suffering before that suffering gets engineered upon you. What I mean by that, make a change your lifestyle to where you have market access to good food. Once you have good food, just like you brought up, once you're consuming something that's going to give you energy in a way that you never have, that begins a new lifestyle. And it's not hard. It's something that you do naturally. You become very intentional about it. You do it with integrity and authenticity. A lot of our food is done with deception. It's done with manipulation through chemicals, through taste, through the labeling laws are screwed, through chemicals that you're consuming that you don't even know, because the FDA don't even have to tell you that they're putting the chemicals into your food. Last year alone, FDA won a lawsuit in October 21 where they could put 2,000 more chemicals in our food systems this year, and they don't have to tell you. And they say it's under the GROS rule, generally recognized as safe. So if you understand that there are deceptions, you say, I'm not going to validate the deceptions anymore, and you create a new lifestyle.
Right on. I was just, validating, like, you're not going to validate a block with a bunch of fake transactions on the Bitcoin blockchain, right? So you don't want to validate any of this fake food. I appreciate the connections that you draw between the money being debased and all the manipulation, of course, all the subsidies and the food. And then that's connected to people's health. And I was thinking of the Rockefeller Foundation, right? David Rockefeller is the one. The Rockefeller Foundation is the institution that brought monocropping to the world. And they were acting as though they're, God's gift to humanity, when in reality they've depleted the soil. And of course, the soil health has so much to do with the health of our bodies.
Sure.
And on top of that, the Rockefellers are the ones that introduced petrochemical medicine, right? The pharmaceutical industrial complex was also brought about in large part by the Rockefellers through the Flexner Report and their effort to kind of demonize Eastern medicine and the old school modalities that are a lot more effective. So I appreciate that. Let me ask you this. Were you like a leader of a movement before this health issue, before this, or were you more, did you keep to yourself, kind of like an average Texas guy?
No.
I'm just always fascinated because it sounds like it's this health event that really catapulted your energy and your desire to do good in the world. Is that the case? You were kind of just more quiet beforehand?
Yeah, I've never been anything like like I said, I made an agreement, and it's a sacred promise within myself. Anytime I do that, as whatever it takes is that you got to do this shit. So I've always just lived kind of a cowboy. I call everybody I'm a hippie punk cowboy from West Texas and Austin. So put it all together, and that's what you get with me. But I've been around the world a couple times. I've lived a life of exploration and adventure. That's for sure. I don't mind stepping out into new horizons. I don't mind the challenges. I like putting in proof of work every day of my life. I don't like a yearning for convenience that they've socially engineered our population to go into, especially our children. So I like a good fight. That's it. And, as far as, being able to lead this, I don't have a problem doing it. One thing that you see, especially on social media, you see it all the time as well, is you see a lot of the fake LARPing and, these influencers that, really don't have a purpose behind it except to basically manipulate just in a different direction. Yeah. So, I just try to be myself. I try to lead with truth and honesty and integrity and authenticity. And I think people are really hungry for authenticity. I hear that a lot these days. They're tired of the BS. They really want to say, hey, man, we're tired of all of this. We want to be able to lead or be led in a way that, please educate, teach us how to do this or show us the way. I don't mind doing that because it saved my life. And, a lot of people are coming into the beef industry saying the same thing. So that's a responsibility. I have an obligation now.
Right on. Well, I appreciate that. And you're doing a good job too. Appreciate your energy and your plurific tweeting and connecting all these different groups together, right? Because I know you've been going to these Bitcoin meetups. There's one this week in Austin. Mm-hmm. And so that's a lot of younger folks. They haven't maybe been exposed to this Texas ranching philosophy and the importance of regenerative agriculture. So it's the bringing together of movements that I think is really special. So let's talk about beef, right?
Sure.
I'm a big meat eater, and just more recently, in large part thanks to my guy Ryan, who helped connect us with you. Right. I've been eating beef a lot and been having steaks a lot. So it's quite the honor to be able to do that. But why is beef such an important part of your diet? How did beef help you transition back to a healthier place? And tell us about the importance of healthy soil and healthy practices when it comes to raising these cattle.
Well, if you look at the history of humanity, we got here by consuming meat. Some form of meat. Usually it's a red meat. You look at the cow itself, the sacred cow, there's a book out there. There's all kinds of history that you can look at the cow. Ancient societies worshiped the cow from, massive differences in religions and philosophies. They all had one thing in common. They knew the importance of the cow. The cow basically is a land tool. The land tool basically takes the earth and does something with it to where it can transfer into your body as far as the vitamins and minerals that are of the earth. That's what we have to survive as a species. We are so separated from understanding where we came from, what we need to be consuming, and the why. Well, a cow has 5 stomachs. It's able to graze off of the forage, off the grasses, off the weeds, off of anything. The cow is very intelligent when it comes to basically being that land tool to transfer the soil into something that you can consume with those vitamins and minerals. But they also are the land tools that steward the land. They regrow soil. with their basically their fertilization of it, with everything that they consume, they give it back to the earth and it regenerates the soil. So many people are so detached from food or even the earth in which they live on that they don't understand this, because there's massive amounts of manipulation and corruption and deceptions when it comes to, what is causing, if you even want to say climate change. I don't even go there because I don't validate deceptions. And how they try to frame it as far as a cow being a carbon hazard is one of the biggest laughable things I've ever heard in my life. But they're convincing people that that's actually something that is true. And, once you look down and once you break down what they're actually trying to accomplish and why they're trying to accomplish, making you think that the cow is a carbon hazard or a cow is going to give you a heart attack because of cholesterol, man, the deceptions run deep. And once you find that clarity, that moment of clarity, you go, whoa, okay, now I want to know more about the cow. So as far as the beef, here in Texas, we've always basically one time we fed a nation. Right after the Civil War, we started feeding a nation. We started doing cattle drives. We actually made this country strong with beef. A lot of people don't realize that. And right now, what I'm telling everybody is that we're on a new modern day cattle drive, and you have a chance to become a modern day cattleman by coming through the beef initiative, the intelligence and the education that we're giving on nutrition, market access. Once again, you look at the lives of the fat-free lives, the cholesterol deceptions in which has taken place. You can go down those rabbit holes and see what they do and have done. But the one thing I tell everybody, I could sit here right now and I could go for the next 3 hours. We could talk about the Rockefellers. We could talk about, all the processing, multinational processing centers that don't allow us to even eat United States beef half the time anymore. But that's not really beneficial to people. What people really need to do is quit parroting all the fear porn and parroting that they know that there's an issue. What they really need to start doing is putting their intentions, their behavior into creating that market access for their children and for themselves, and become part of the solution instead of being part of the marketing arm of the people that are trying to enslave us with prohibition against nutrition, against our personal space, against our money with hyperinflation, how they print, how, we end up poor one day. Sometimes we got a little extra money, sometimes we don't, but it's all done through the manipulation of the dollar. If you can accept all that's going on, then what you do is you put your energy, you put your focus into a new direction where you don't even have to worry about that stuff. I don't watch TV. I don't listen to radio. Nothing comes through these ears unless I say it does. By doing that, I'm living a damn good life. I'm basically creating an international lifestyle that everybody out there is yearning for, but they need to step off and they need to go in a different direction as far as their intentions and as far as their consumption models.
Right on. Well said. Well said. I appreciate the whole solutions focus, because there's a lot of people that think they're doing God's work on earth by sharing videos and watching documentaries on Rumble and trying to shove stuff down their family's throat at Thanksgiving dinner. Yeah. When in reality, like you said, they're perpetuating the problem. They're perpetuating a lot of fear too. But when you step into that, you step out of the reactionary state and into a space of proactivity. It really is fulfilling, and it relieves all sorts of anxiety and stress and feelings of overwhelm. So appreciate what you're doing when it comes to market access, right? So the cow is sacred. It's worshipped in many religions, and there's really something magical, evolutionary. I don't know if it's a God thing or if it's just evolution, but that's pretty cool that it can take earth and plant matter and convert it into such high sustenance food, and it repeats that whole cycle, right, between what we eat and the earth and regeneration. So talk about market access, because it's something that we've been really focused on with the local Freedom Cell group here. We hosted a meeting not too long ago, linking up folks with local food producers and basically creating like a directory and really encouraging people to give these folks your business, but not just order online or whatever, but try to build a relationship. And this is beneficial because for two reasons. One, in a reactionary mode, if crap hits the fan, we want to be able to continue to eat, right? And continue to give our business to these folks that are supplying the food. But more importantly, this is a better way to live anyway, having a connection with the food, visiting the ranch or the farm where you get your veggies or your meat. So talk about market access and what the Beef Initiative is aiming to do in order to help foster greater connectivity between the food and the consumer.
Sure. When I say market access, a lot of people don't realize how it's changed throughout the last 50 years as well. Used to, and let's use Texas as an example. In Texas, we have 254 counties. At one time, we had 254 micro processing centers in the state of Texas. Those processing centers, those micro processing, they're abattoirs, processing centers, where we harvest the animal. They fed the communities. Well, throughout the 50 years that we've gone, the multinational corporations have come in, and now we only have 4 major multinational processing centers that process 80% of our animal protein in the United States, and they're not even in the United States. What they do is they control the distribution of all of that food, and nobody really has a say in it. Okay, what we do within the Beef Initiative, as I say, I'm going to live like my grandfather lived. Well, what did he do? Well, he raised his animal. He took it to the local processing center. He raised the animal. He knew where it got processed. He got the animal processed. He take it back home. He fed the family. Within the Beef Initiative, we have that same philosophy. A lot of the ranchers, producers that are coming in here, they have market access to a processing center that they can take the animal to the processing center. They can get that product back, and then they can sell it to the people that want their product. And people don't realize how important that is. All the touch points that you eliminate out of the multinationals, you can do it, especially through the Beef Initiative. You were there down in Luling at the Kill It and Grill It, the Cattleman's Feast. And I appreciate everybody that came there with your team. Thank you for the sponsorship. It's fascinating when people step up like you have. But by doing that, Cole Bolton and Clyde Summerlotti, K&C Cattle and 2 Bar C Ranch, well, now we have a microprocessing right there in Central Texas. It's logistically, put there for a reason. They're feeding the community again. They have the cattle, regenerative cattle. Now they have their own processing center. The processing center basically creates the product, and now the community can have market access. They don't have to go to H-E-B. They don't have to go to Kroger. They don't have to go to Walmart. They can be intentional. They can go buy any type of basically beef they want. And one thing that you saw is during the Cattleman's Feast, the cuts of the cow, the amount of cow that you can actually have access to through somebody like Hometown Meats, the Beef Initiative, 2 Bar C, everybody, K&C Cattle, Cole Bolton. What we've done is we've created a whole new market access to beef that a lot of people don't even know exist. And so once you go down that rabbit hole, the education of the cuts of the cow, what you can do, what you can do and how you can feed your family. I always tell everybody I have 4 ranchers in my damn freezers. And what I mean by that is the variety that I get to now choose that is actually more cost effective than shopping at a supermarket. So once you have market access, once you've shaken that rancher's hand through the Beef Initiative, here that way, through the Beef Initiative or in person, you got to see the ranch. You got to see 2 Bar C Ranch. You get to see where the people are, the people that actually live and die to feed you. And what we've done as a society is we've forgotten about that. We think food should be a convenience. Food should be based on survival and health, not a convenience. It's not a drive-through. And people need to kind of, we've been socially engineered once again. I'm not going to go there. But what we have is market access to health. And it's a vertical integration back into human health by having market access into this type of dense nutrition that is beef, pure animal protein.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. And that was an incredible event to visit the new processing facility and see all these great folks doing this amazing work. And I appreciate a lot of people think that in order to change the world or to be more precise, in order to change their world, they have to do all these grandiose efforts and all this revolutionary activity and protesting and yada, 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 all this nonsense, really. When in reality, we just have to go back to the old way of doing things, right? But the cool thing, too, I want to talk about cryptocurrencies. It's kind of merging the old way with this new technology. But I do want to invite folks, again, you're going to be speaking at our event here in Bastrop, Texas. It'll also be streamed online. It's the Food Resiliency Town Hall. Folks can register for free at livefree.academy, town hall, livefree.academy / town hall. But you'll also be presenting at the Greater Reset. That's taking place January 18th through the 22nd. So I definitely want to bring people's attention to the Greater Reset. Then go to thegreaterreset.org. And, you mentioned the Great Reset earlier. We're doing a lot. This movement and this event, the Greater Reset, is a deliberate pushback on the Great Reset. I just wanted to bring the audience's attention to this article here from 2019 from the World Economic Forum. They're the ones behind the Great Reset. 6 pressing questions about beef and climate change answered. And as you said, it's absolutely ridiculous. They say beef is more resource intensive and puts out more carbon, when in reality, it's one of the greatest ways to leverage the nutrients that are found in the soil and the food and eat that. But they go on later. They got this question here, because this is a war on food, war on meat, and really a war on us. They say, would eating less beef be bad for jobs in the agriculture industry? Let me see, actually, this question right here. Do we all need to stop eating beef in order to curb climate change? The short answer is no, but they do say that we had to go to about half the current U.S. levels. So everybody needs to eat beef half as much, according to the Great Reset and the World Economic Forum. But in all honesty, I'm eating beef twice or maybe 4 or 10 times as much as I used to. So I guess we're enemy number one. But again, that's the Greater Reset. You can go to thegreaterreset.org, thegreaterreset.org. Slim will be joining us in person in Bastrop, Texas, or you can watch online for free at thegreaterreset.org. Or if you want to join Derek Bros and crew down in Mexico, they're going to be hosting from there as well. Okay, so what can people do what's some tips or some advice that you could give folks in order to tap into this network of cattle ranchers, food producers? How do they get connected, and what are some of the first steps people can do?
It's the Beef Initiative, beefinitiative.com. You go there, you subscribe, it'll get you to the newsletter, and then you have market access to over 100 producers, like I say, that are across the United States that have come in voluntarily. This is not a marketing plan, and I'm going to be very stern about this. Beef Initiative is not about marketing. This is about word of mouth. This is about grassroots, intentional behavior. Every one of these ranchers, producers have come into the Beef Initiative because they want to have a voice again. And it's about giving them a voice. Well, you give them a voice by go out there to the Beef Initiative, you do a search. And if you can't find anybody in your area, then you need to get out there and you need to go find somebody in your area and go shake their hand. You need to develop a relationship with them and ask them why they do what they do. You are the student. Let them educate you. And then therefore, once you've done that, you can basically go out there and you can have a relationship that you always are going to cherish, you're going to have obligation to, and that you're going to realize that it's going to help change your life. It's more than just buying beef. The American rancher is under attack. They use it. All that crap that you just showed right there is the deception that a lot of people, they don't even know how to disseminate why it is a deception. We have enough beef in the United States to feed every family. We don't have to have a major change in basically how we raise cattle. There's a few things that we always need to improve on, but there's a war on the cattle rancher. There's a war on commodity cowboys. I call them commodity cowboys. And I think that's a bunch of BS. It's basically what we are doing in the Beef Initiative is we're going to say this is not a competition between these producers and ranchers. We want you to stand by what you do, and we want you to feed your communities. If that's your intentions, then come through the Beef Initiative. So we know that the rancher producers that come into the Beef Initiative, their intentions are true, their authenticity is real, and they want to feed your family. So it is up to us. Everybody always thinks somebody's going to come save them. Nobody's going to save us. No politician is going to save you. No multinational corporation is going to save you. The only people that are going to save you, if you are worried about being saved, is yourself. And how you do that is you change your consumer demand. As I say, you quit validating the deceptions, because every time you go to the supermarket and you know that a lot of the supermarket is now basically turned into a convenience store, and the convenience store is now the supermarket, then you're validating deceptions, and you've got to change. It's okay to have that confidence. You don't need to ask for permission, as I keep saying that. But I think once people finally accept that they can accept that they have to change their individual consumer demand, the accountability mirror is on you now. You can't look out there anymore and say, who's going to save us? Only thing that saves us is we change our consumption models and we quit giving them the fuel. What is the fuel? The United States dollar. So whenever you quit doing that, then they have to pay attention. You don't have to brag about it. You just do it and you go on your merry way. And if every individual, sovereign-minded individual in the United States of America would do that, then we could put it into all this BS and all this deception pretty quick. That's what people have to understand, and they need to start acting in that way. We're all adults here. These children in our nation are helpless. They have not had a chance. We've already lost a generation of children to basically metabolic failure. Children are coming into the doctors now with fatty liver disease, liver transplants. 46% of our children right now between the ages of 5 and 11 are obese or going to be obese. They're 1 out of 2 is going towards diabetes, or they're already in diabetes. That is a travesty. That is a freaking genocide, and people need to step up and quit, like you said before, quit parroting and quit becoming a marketing arm of all of the deceptions, and start being a marketing arm of your own intentional behavior that changes the consumer demand of this nation.
Right on. Well said. I appreciate the passion. That passion is infectious. So you are definitely speaking truth to power. A lot of people walk the walk, but without a doubt, you're talking the talk and bringing a lot of people together, which is important too. Not just sharing or one man crusade, but really building a movement behind this. That's what it takes to spread ideas. And this is definitely an idea whose time has come. Let's talk about Bitcoin and the role that it plays in market access and connecting folks and in this whole peer-to-peer model, because you're creating peer-to-peer networks between consumers and producers, right? So how does Bitcoin play a role in all this? And if you could start by sharing how you learned about Bitcoin.
Well, Bitcoin is very confused. And once again, they confuse the general public that doesn't have a true understanding of what Bitcoin is. And I'm going to say this very sternly now, and it's not a judgment against anybody because I did it myself. Cryptocurrency and Bitcoin are not the same thing. Okay. Bitcoin is not cryptocurrency. Bitcoin is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is basically a decentralized network. It's a new form of technology that gives you a monetary store of value. It is extremely decentralized. It's not a centralized controlled apparatus. Everything you got in the crypto world is no different from them printing dollars. They can print out and they can digitize coins, and they can basically collapse the economy, which they're damn near trying to do right now with FTX. I don't know if you saw anything about that, but that was a big old Ponzi scheme, and that's based on cryptocurrency, and we call them shit coins. What you have to understand is that Bitcoin is not cryptocurrency. What it is, it's a decentralized apparatus that is a peer-to-peer transactional system that gives you a store of value, and it's based on scarcity and decentralization. Okay, this nation doesn't even understand what scarcity is anymore. We live in the mindset that we live in abundance. We don't live in abundance. It's basically that what people have been engineered to think. There's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin ever mined. Okay, after that, there's no more Bitcoin that's ever going to be mined. So there's scarcity, store of value. I always ask the ranchers, what is the store of the value of the cow now? They don't, well, they give me answers, and I'll tell that later on. But the store of value of being a rancher has been stolen basically by the debasement of our dollar. basically the lack of access to the land in which our grandfathers stewarded. And so they don't have a store of value in which our ancestors had. Bitcoin is that apparatus that is going to change the future of cattle ranching and food systems across the world if you want a decentralized market access. So with beef and Bitcoin, what it is I can go out there, I can buy a full cow from Cole Bolton and K&C Cattle, or Jason Rick of Rick Ranches, or Holy Cow, Ann Weldon, any one of these ranchers that have come through the beef initiative. I can go buy a full cow, I can get my wallet out, and I can say, there you go. And it goes from me to them. And that Bitcoin, if they don't want it all in Bitcoin, the rancher can then say, I want 90% of this to go into my bank account. I'm going to save 10% in Bitcoin, because in the last 11 years, every year, all it's done is gone up 100%. I think there's been 1 year to this year might be another year that it did lose value. But throughout the history of time, it's always increased in value, and that will continue to happen throughout the years. It's not a get rich quick scheme. This is investing in creating legacies, a store of value that the United States government cannot take away from you. It is legal. It is looked at as property. And what it takes, though, and a lot of people don't have this, is the patience and the focus to educate themselves what Bitcoin truly is and what the deceptions are that basically the United States government, the banking systems, everybody else. I remember growing up and working in big tech. I remember whenever they said Amazon had no value. I remember when Amazon actually crashed 8 times in the beginning. Amazon, nobody believed it was going to happen. I remember when Apple basically was not allowed to be purchased as a stock in certain states in the United States. What we have to do is we have to put perspective around what money is, what value is, and basically how you can leverage against basically the Fed and the United States government that is taking away your basically your time. They're stealing your time. My father's 81 years old right now. He's retired. He lost over 6 years of his life this year that he worked, that he never even got paid because of hyperinflation. Bitcoin fights against that. Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer. Nobody has to basically give me approval to be able to buy beef, and the rancher can sell beef. And they're coming in, they're being educated, and they're using it as a tool to leverage against this hyperinflation and the debasement of the US dollar. And it is not cryptocurrency. That's one thing that I have to say to be very responsible for. And you go down that, everybody did. I started down crypto world and all that. But what you do is you find out, if you do your education and you make sure that you're getting the right focus on what Bitcoin truly is, you leave out the desire to know what anything's going on in the crypto world, all that deceptions that are going on in that. What you have to do is there's only one Bitcoin, and that is Bitcoin.
Right on. Right. Yeah. And that's controversial, of course, in the quote unquote crypto community.
That's fine.
Yeah, I've been doing it for, crypto since like 2013 or so. And in fact, early on, my ex-wife and I, we traveled around the country using Bitcoin only a few times.
Right.
Which was definitely a lot more challenging back in 2013.
It was. So. I commend you.
Yeah. But, I was very much into all sorts of different altcoins or cryptocurrencies. But as time goes on and the space matures and immatures, I guess, in some ways, it's actually becoming more clear to me that, Bitcoin has the greatest network effect, and it's truly decentralized, right? I think Satoshi Nakamoto's greatest gift to the world was not hanging around, right? To manipulate things, or to be manipulated, or to be coerced. There's no company that started things. I will say, though, I still am fond of Monero, because I do think that we need a privacy-based option completely obscuring everything, right? I know there are some tools you can use with Bitcoin. Of course, Lightning Network can help in that way.
Sure. And
but in large part, you got to be careful.
To your point, though, see what you just said, Monero. You said Monero because you're basically stewarding your privacy. See, you have good intentions. So something at Monero, I hear a lot of Bitcoiners, they're very fond of it, and I think it will have a place probably. I'm not the one to say that. I know what works now for the beef initiative, and that's all I care about.
Yep.
But thank you for bringing that up, because that's a good point to bring up as far as the perception. The why that you like Monero is because of privacy.
Yep. And now, so I do a lot of education with Bitcoin, and I do spend a lot of time helping beginners at its workshop, specifically tailored towards beginners. In fact, I did a more comprehensive workshop first and thought I was like helping folks out by going as deep as I possibly could and basically unloading all my Bitcoin crypto knowledge. But it turns out a lot of people were overwhelmed. So then I followed it up with one geared towards beginners. How have you found that some of these ranchers have struggled? Because a lot of Texas ranchers are really hands-on, get her done kind of folks, not technology or spending so much time on the computer or smartphone. So how has that been received? Has there been a little bit of a challenge there? And how are you overcoming these challenges to help folks on board onto crypto?
Well, I think one of the challenges that we have with any type of new technology, like I say, coming up through the startup days in big tech, a lot of times we don't have the verbiage, or we don't really understand, how to approach people to talk about things. And first, you had to learn how to, teach your parents how to, put a document in a file on a computer, and you had to create scenarios and analogies that they can understand. I think that's a lot with Bitcoin. But one thing that I knew from the very beginning with my, expertise in technology of the past is that most ranchers, most, animal producers have already a decentralized mindset for the most part. They understand proof of work, because that's what they do every day. They don't have a choice. They don't look at the clock. They're not clock watchers. And so if you understand how their mind works and how they operate, what you can do is you can create conversations. I never sell Bitcoin. Bitcoin's not for sale. And I never push Bitcoin on anybody. That's not what this is about. Relationship building. I ask to be educated, and I create a relationship with those producer ranchers. And you know what happens whenever you do form some trust and some dialogue that's based on respect? The conversation is always going to go into Bitcoin, because you start talking about pain points in the ranching industry. You talk about store of value. You talk about proof of work. You talk about decentralization. You talk about community building. You talk about nodes. And so you don't ever have to push Bitcoin. That's not something I'm going to do. If you're curious about it, we've got roadmaps. We now have partnerships with Oshi, IBEX. The Beef Initiative has done their own innovation. We have a strong team that help educate any producer rancher, and it's going to really ramp up over the next year, because one of our IBEX, I'll just say them. They're an international company, and so they're going to bring Biff Initiative within their messaging. And so it's just not about the American producer rancher. It's every animal producer across this globe is going to have access to that education that is actually saving ranchers right now, because they are understanding that this monetary system that has a store of value basically is at their fingertips. It's free. You don't have to buy anything. What you have to do is educate. And one thing that most ranchers and producers are educators. They understand the importance of education. So they take the time to educate themselves. That's one thing that I want to give every rancher props and respect to. Do they take the time to educate?
Right on. All right, we're coming here to a close. Let me ask you this. What do you foresee, or what already is one of the biggest obstacles or hurdles or challenges when it comes to spreading this and the Beef Initiative finding greater success and really permeating the public consciousness? What do you think are some of the hurdles, and then how are you planning to overcome them?
I really don't to identify, the issues at hand, or as far as the hurdles, like you say, I really don't really see anything. The one thing, if I have to be, which I am very transparent and honest, if I have to say anything, the biggest thing I'm up against is people's ignorance but I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's because it takes time to understand, what's really going on. A lot of people, you got to find out where they are before you start talking at them. And you got to start learning how to basically communicate. One thing is communicating to the masses is kind of hard, and a lot of people do it very successfully, but it's usually a marketing plan, right? And the Beef Initiative isn't a marketing plan. So one of the biggest challenges is basically talking to everybody where they are and having that patience. And, I've been doing this for 3 years. That's all I got is patience. This is a 10-year plan. They got a 10-year plan. We got a 10-year plan. We're going to change the beef industry in the United States of America and across this globe. I can guarantee it. And one thing that on top of that is the hardest thing to do, because people don't realize right now the industrial food complex has turned food into a drug. And basically, a lot of people's consumer demand is not something that they really are intentionally or want to do, but what it is, it's based on, a consumption model that's hard to break. And so changing people's consumer demand, we have to hit it all fronts. We have to be pop culture. Look at me, I'm a cowboy, I'm rough and tumble. We're going to change pop culture. We'll turn it on its head. But what we're going to do, and the challenge is getting everybody, the individual, to understand that they are the solution. The solution's not out there, man. It's every time you open up that fridge, every time you walk in that supermarket, you're saying, I'm not coming back. I'm going to go find somebody where I don't ever have to step in the supermarket ever again. Once you do that, your consumer demand changes the world, because you do it one person, one step at a time. I started the Beef Initiative with one handshake with one rancher that developed into one cow that fed one family. That's all we got to do. That's the perspective. And if everybody can take that same perspective, there'll be the change they want to happen. They'll become the movie, and they'll see this. Their life will change for the better. Their children's lives will change for the better, and they will create a legacy that everybody in their family is going to be very proud of.
I love it. I love it, man. And it reminds me of the early Bitcoin evangelism days. Like, we were just giving Bitcoin to people, giving away half Bitcoin here and there, right? So It's the same thing, meeting people one-on-one, grassroots, communication, shaking hands. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate your eye for, for what's viral, right? And you got the whole mysterious cowboy look and the hat down and everything. It's cool. And it's a cool thing too. Like Texas cowboys, there's a culture, there's an Americana there. And so I think it's definitely something that could be tapped into, and you're tapping into it, especially the young people on board, and to merge crypto, rancher, regenerative agriculture lifestyle. So you're really doing great work in the world. And I'm excited that you're going to be joining us again for the Food Town Hall that's taking place December 3rd, coming up this Saturday. Folks can sign up to watch for free online at livefree.academy/town hall, livefree.academy/town hall. So the headliner there, of course, is Texas Slim. He's going to be doing a workshop on market access. We're going to hear from John Pantalone of Amber Oaks Ranch. Myself, my friend Nomad Brad. Nomad Brad actually hosted a meat share. We got together 16 people. We all chipped in varying amounts, and we bought a whole cow, had it butchered, and it filled my entire deep freezer, which was pretty cool. So folks are all worried about food shortages. Meanwhile, we got a freaking freezer full of meat, which was sweet. And of course, we'll be joined by Bo Brotherton of Better Together Homestead. You can join us in person if you're here in Central Texas in Bastrop, or you can watch for free online. So any parting words for the audience there, Mr. Slim?
No, I really appreciate everything. You reaching out. You guys did see us. You talk about grassroots and viral. I mean, you guys, you've helped the Beef Initiative, and I want to give you, recommend that everybody that, maybe come across you guys to really get out there to Bastrop, December 3rd, January 18th through 21st. And you've done a great job. You've been great supporters. I mean, we're just getting started. 2023 is going to be a phenomenal year. We've got the momentum, and, it's because people coming together, and really saying, hey, how can we collaborate? Because it's one big collaboration. So everybody's kind of yearning for a different, way of living. Here it is, right? Here it is. Let's quit watching Netflix and let's get out to Bastrop on December 3rd, right?
All right. Right on. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. Appreciate you.
Hey, thank you, John. Appreciate it.
All right. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Texas Slim, the one, the only. Super grateful for the work that he's doing in this world. You can find more about this movement that he and other ranchers are helping to create at beefinitiative.com. That's beefinitiative.com. And once again, Slim will be our headlining speaker at the Food Resiliency Town Hall. We're going to have some talks, some workshops. We're going to learn about different meat cuts when it comes to the cow. And we're also going to be having a really nice feast from K&C Cattle. And on top of that, it's a town hall, right? So we're going to close the event down with a giant session with all the ranchers and food producers that we've invited, and we're going to answer questions. So folks that are watching online, you'll get access to a Zoom link, and then the folks that are in person, of course, will be able to ask questions. So we really are doing everything we can in order to empower people. At the end of the day, we'll just provide the information and the message and hopefully some motivation, but you got to be the one to act. So act now. Head on over to livefree.academy/townhall, livefree.academy/townhall. Again, it's completely free. You'll be able to watch the transmission this weekend, Saturday, December 3rd. It all kicks off. The stream starts at 12 o'clock, 12 to 4 p.m. So I hope you'll join us. And if you are in Central Texas, or if you want to hop on a train, plane, or automobile, you could join us here in Bastrop, Texas, as we launch our new office and event space. Again, all the information is over at livefree.academy/town hall, and you can follow Slim's work or sign up for their newsletter at beefinitiative.com. That's beefinitiative.com. Until next time, peace and freedom, friends. I'm out.